Welcome on back to a new edition of the N Harmon Show. I am Triggered, and also Dalton Wicks.
I'm N Harmon, and we're blowing out the NBA today. We got award predictions, we got who we think is going to make the playoffs, we got injuries, we got storylines, we got everything for you today. And why pissed off, Dalton? I think I know why.
A lot of things, Eric. My life, just for one. No, honestly, we had some troubles recording. We were going to try to live stream for you today. Ran into some problems, mainly because I think we need a PC to start recording at a good rate, and I'm using my laptop right now, so that's going to be put on hold for a little while. And also, people just love mowing their lawns today. We got some pretty sensitive mics, and we're picking up everybody mowing their lawn around my house.
We have not had anyone affect the broadcast before today, and we have had 4 people mowing their lawns in the past 2 hours, and we have not been able to get anything done.
It's been very triggersome, but I think we're finally ready to get into it.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking some NBA, and that's what we're going to jump into right about now. Go ahead and get into it already.
Let's
it's getting so close. It's about a week away, right?
Yeah,
6-7 days.
I don't know. I don't know if I think it's next Wednesday. It starts on ESPN, but I'm not exactly sure. I just saw an advertisement, so I don't know if that's when it opens up. But I am pumped. Oh my gosh, there's nothing that gets me going now more than those ESPN NBA commercials. The last 3 years, they've been on point for just me wanting to be all into the NBA, watching it on Wednesday nights.
That's the only thing that's got me hyped about ESPN these days.
Yeah, that's true. That is very, very true. Where do you want to start with the NBA season? Because there's so many places we can start.
So before we get into some storylines and stuff like that, I think it'd be really fun for us to just go through some rapid-fire predictions for the awards for this upcoming season. We have no idea what's going to happen, so let's just throw out some random picks about, like, all right, I think this guy's going to get this guy. I mean, there's, of course, going to be some surefire candidates you can't really go wrong with, but maybe you throw in some out-of-nowhere picks as well.
Yes.
So we'll start off with the big Mamma Jamma, the MVP award. First of all, do you want to list any candidates for that, or do you want to just go right into who your pick is?
Let's go with candidates first. I think just naming a name. Let's go. I'll throw a little top 5 out there that I was reading on. Durant, Curry, LeBron,
Thompson, Green, and Zaza.
Yeah, there we go. Russell Westbrook and then James Harden. Those would, I think, would maybe be the top 5 right now. You know, a lot of people are saying that because the Warriors are so stacked together that it's going to go to LeBron, and I'm just going to go against that because why not? So I'm going to say I think Durant might win the MVP this year. I just got a feeling that he's looking at such nice shots this season, with Steph Curry assisting him the ball and so much support around, and let's see if he can put an MVP. And it's early. I mean, I don't really know. I just like to see that, I guess. I'd like to see Durant win an MVP with the Warriors. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Unfortunately, my thinking with this is that it's going to go to a guy who's kind of like the only option on his team. That's why a lot of people have been pulling so hard for Westbrook to get it this year. It's a tough one because Westbrook, he's very talented. I'm never going to knock any of his ability or his ceiling, but the problem is he can be very sporadic at times. And just as he can go flaming hot, he can also go really cold in certain instances. So
well, now he doesn't have a
superstar
guy to back him up when that happens.
See, that helped him a lot with his looks and everything. Granted, you can point to the time where Kevin Durant was out for a little while and Westbrook was still going just as bonkers, but not having Durant around is going to hurt a little bit. Not having Ibaka around is going to hurt even more. It's not just Durant. It's both of those guys that are gone. So Westbrook's one guy. You can't ever count out LeBron James. I think LeBron's going to be right back in it. I'd be shocked if LeBron is not in the top 3. I think you're going to be looking at... I think it's going to be the same thing we've been seeing recently. I would say... in some order, it's going to be LeBron, Westbrook, and Curry as the top 3 for MVP, just because Curry's numbers are going to drop, but I think his efficiency will rise because of that. He's not going to miss as many shots because he's not going to take as many shots. And I think his assist numbers are going to go up because he's got Durant and all those guys around him, so...
It's the same thing that happened with Miami Heat. You know, you had to put all the superstars together, less shots, more efficiency. So absolutely.
Right. I think what unfortunately is going to happen this year is that people are going to take in the finals from last year and include it into this season, which I don't think is fair. I mean, I understand why they're going with it. They're going to look at the finals and they're going to use that as part of a reason to give LeBron the MVP this season. It's like I've seen that theory floated around a little bit, saying that they're gonna try to reward him for that finals just comeback and triumph, getting Cleveland the championship and everything. They're gonna kind of reward him with the MVP. He's still got to earn it this year. Don't get me wrong, but I think if his numbers were equal, somebody else's are looking very similar, they would just give him that because of the finals. So I'm gonna say LeBron. As much as it pains me, I'm gonna say LeBron James is gonna win the MVP with Russell Westbrook being second and Curry being third.
Okay. Yeah. You can't go wrong when you choose LeBron as your. LeBron, I gotta go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Rookie of the year?
This one's pretty wide open right now. With Ben Simmons' injury, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that makes this a really interesting pick all of a sudden.
I'm trying to think. Brandon Ingram.
Ingram's a popular choice right now. Dunn also. I mean, there's even some wild cards like Bender over in Phoenix, who went, I think, 4th in the draft.
Buddy Hield, maybe a bit of a wild card.
Buddy Hield, especially because the wing depth with New Orleans is kind of in shambles right now, so he may see a lot of playing time as a result. So that could happen. This is tough.
How long is Ben Simmons supposed to be out for?
His agent doesn't want him playing the entire year.
Really?
Because it's a Jones fracture, and they've seen what happens when people rush back with Jones fractures in their foot. It's a really serious foot injury.
Yeah.
And supposedly he could be back in about 3 months or so, they were saying. But his agent really, based on past experiences with this injury and seeing what could happen, he wants, especially because Simmons is still so young, he feels like he can afford to sit a year out. Kind of like when you see a quarterback in the NFL who gets drafted, and not that they're injured, but they just sit out the first year.
And it's not like the 76ers haven't done this with other players on their team, so it's not a new sort of line of thought process for the 76ers and the process. So I could definitely see that, and if that happens, that kind of just blows it all wide open. So
right.
I mean, my guess is Ben Simmons, but if Ben Simmons doesn't play, then I don't know. It can go to Hield, Dunn, Ingram. Those would be my three to possibly take it if he doesn't play.
Okay, so the Rookie of the Year, I'm going to just take a random stab at it, and I'm going to say that Brandon Ingram's going to get this from the Los Angeles Lakers. There's been some people that are making a case for Dunn as well, but the big problem with picking Dunn is that there's so much guard depth on the Timberwolves. You figure Wiggins has got to get his. Towns has got to get his. Ricky Rubio's been there for a while, and he's not just going to fall out of the rotation all of a sudden. And Zach LaVine's also budding into a bit of a star as well.
Lots of players on Minnesota,
So I don't think he's going to get enough stat line to really compete. I think his minutes will be limited. He's a great defender, too, and typically great defenders don't really fit well into Rookie of the Year. You're looking at guys who score a lot, and I think Ingram fits that mold a lot better.
Gotcha. On to the next.
I think we're going to look at sixth man now.
Sixth man, let's do it.
Just sixth man and Coach of the Year will wrap it up. So
sure.
Sixth man, this is a tough one because sometimes guys, their rotation hasn't been figured out until a few weeks into the season, but you can look at some people that you pretty much know are going to be sixth men right now. The Jamal Crawfords, the Andre Iguodalas, I don't know, is Isaiah Thomas? I think Isaiah Thomas is now in the rotation for Boston Celtics, or in the starting lineup for Boston, so I think he's out.
You're going to have Eric Gordon over in Houston, who's now going to be a sixth man.
I think he's going to start because
really?
I think Beverly's not ready for the beginning of the season.
Okay, all right.
But it's going to be interesting to see who falls into that sixth man, because what I'm thinking is, what if Eric Gordon starts out the season because Beverly's on the shelf, and then Gordon plays so well, then he doesn't go to the sixth man? Or he could start out kind of shaky, Beverly comes in, and then he takes the seat as the sixth man.
That's because I was the way it's set up. If you have Beverly into that starting lineup, that's a good defensive mix at the guard position when you also have James Harden there. If you have Eric Gordon,
but you got to keep in mind that this is Mike D'Antoni, and he just wants to score.
We're gonna score
all the points in the world.
Seconds,
That's why they signed Eric Gordon and Ryan Anderson, two guys who don't know what the word defense is, and they just score. And then they've got James Harden. And they've also, to their credit, they've got two defensive-minded guys in that lineup already, in Clint Capella and Trevor Ariza. Those are guys that are more defensive-oriented.
3&D and Ariza.
You know what?
You would think offensive balance, but you're absolutely right that D'Antoni would be a guy who'd throw just an offensive powerhouse out there and just like.
Right.
But Eric Gordon, I mean, if he is that scoring threat as a sixth man, like I feel like on that Houston team, that's like that would work in their backcourt. He should be on sixth man, in my opinion, for that balance. But D'Antoni's going to do what D'Antoni does. So,
do you think that the sixth man needs to be on a playoff team to win? That's a tough question, because this was going to be my argument to that, is because now all of a sudden it seems like the Phoenix Suns have a loaded backcourt with Devin Booker emerging as a really good player, and then they've also got Brandon Knight and Eric Bledsoe. So I think one of those guys may have to go to the bench and be a super sub.
I don't.
But the Suns
think
themselves,
they don't
really scream playoff team.
Yeah, I think that's more of a MVP sort of award thing to think about. But
think back, when's the last time you've heard of a sixth man on a team that didn't even make the playoffs, even as like an 8 seed? I can't even think of one.
Yeah, so...
It's normally given to guys who make the playoffs. So that's why I'm going to be a little bit biased in this pick, just because he's not won it and been glossed over so many times, because he doesn't score a lot. Andre Iguodala is going to win it this year.
And he's deserved it a couple years before. So, like, if they're going to do that thing for LeBron...
I'm so sick of the Jamal Crawfords and guys like that winning this award. Jamal Crawford is as one way of a player as you could possibly imagine. He's pretty rail thin, and his only job is he comes into the game and he just tries to score. And if he's not scoring, he's useless on the court. And when they looked into all the metrics and statistics about his like real plus minus and everything, he was negative in quite a few of those. And he was among some of the lower tier players in the league as far as actual statistical effects on the game when you're talking about things that are like that war type subject. And like I said, plus minus and stuff like that. So I'm not a huge Jamal Crawford fan.
It's a little crazy just to think about how bad his defense has to be, because he's a pretty good offensive player. Like, when he plays, and when he averages 21 more minutes per season, which he has over his last 14 out of 16 seasons, he averages more than 10 points per game coming off the bench, which is a pretty good per 36 number. I mean, he's putting up good numbers offensively from the bench. His defense is just so terrible that it's wiping it all out. I'm trying to think of who the comparison was a couple years ago. Oh, David Lee. David Lee, right there, is basically what you're looking at from the guard position, though.
Do you know what I think would be a great trade? Okay, the Houston Rockets trade Trevor Ariza straight up for Jamal Crawford, just because they just want to become the ultimate offensive team.
Yeah.
They're going to slot Crawford right into the starting lineup, and they just want to have shooters everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't care about defense. They just want to outscore
7 seconds are left in that 7 seconds or less offense. They just run up the court, throw it to a corner, 3-pointer every single time.
That would be a pretty scary lineup, though, actually. If you had Clint Capella at center and then shooters everywhere around him, just Jamal Crawford, Ryan Anderson, James Harden, and then Eric Gordon.
That'd be like 145 to 132 games.
Can you imagine how much they would break the 3 points attempted record by? I mean,
it'd be cool. It'd be cool. And we could all laugh at them because of the Houston Rockets.
Yeah. Daryl Morey, you're an interesting fella.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
And then finally, just a quick shot at Coach of the Year. This one's always an interesting one, just because you don't know which teams are going to rise from the ashes and not. I think a popular pick this year, and the one that I'm going to go with, is Tom Thibodeau over in Minnesota, just because the Timberwolves look primed to make a bit of a leap this year.
They could improve by 18 wins or so and be within real.
Really, yeah. And just because Thibodeau he's already established himself as a really good NBA coach, and he's going to really look to redeem himself from that terrible ending of the relationship between him and the Bulls. So I think it's his to lose.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, in that he's a really strong candidate and probably one of the strongest. A guy that I'm looking at, just because the Spurs have gone through actually a lot of change this last season. They lost like 5 or 6 guys, I think.
They lost Diaw, they lost Duncan, and
Boban
Marjanovic went to the Detroit Pistons. But they added David Lee.
David West too. They lost David West.
Yeah, they lost David West.
So I mean, if it was crazy last year how even though the Warriors won 73 games, they didn't clinch the division until like late March or something like that, just because of how good the Spurs were. And I think that might be a little bit, or it might be focused on a little bit more because of how much of all the roster turnover, the fact that they're getting a year older on top of that as well. If they can stay at that win percentage that they did last year, I could see Popovich winning it.
Yeah, my guy is going to be Thibodeau, and I'll say if not, the only way he loses it, in my opinion, is if the Celtics are the 2 seed.
And they give it to Brad Stevenson.
They give it to Brad Stevens because I don't think Stevens hasn't won one yet, has he?
I don't think he has.
So Stevens would be my pick only if he ends up being the 2 seed behind the Cavs. They're not going to be the number 1 seed. The Cavaliers will be the number 1 seed, but if the Celtics,
then Tyronn Lue will win it.
You're only as good as the talent around you in that situation. Tyronn Lue's good to a certain extent, but he does not need all that credit.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to move on to, now that we've talked a little bit about playoffs, do we think any teams are going to sneak in that were not in last year?
I've got 5 teams that I think have got a shot, and 4 of them I think are pretty realistic. One of them is just something that I'm hoping for. So the 4 realistic ones I have are from the Eastern Conference, Bulls and the Bucks. I think those 2 teams shouldn't make improvements, even though the Bucks would need to make like a 11 or 12 win improvement. I think it may be in the cards for them. And then the Western Conference, I've got the Jazz and the Timberwolves making a jump possibly to the playoffs. Jazz were 40 and 42 last year, right on the outside, so thinking they can get in. And Timberwolves, we were just talking about how much of a jump they can make. My 5th team that was probably going to be the least or the most unrealistic is the New York Knicks, just because I want to see the New York Knicks with this new super team, as Derrick Rose has put them, to get into the playoffs and actually do good, and just throw some pundits through a loop, I guess, because they're not expected to do good, and I like to see the Knicks in the playoffs. It's always I don't know, good for just the league, I guess. I don't know how to put that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that sentiment. For me, let's see. I've got Chicago could make it just because of the star power they've got now. It just depends on how they mesh.
Yeah.
If D Wade, and especially now with that trade, I guess we should briefly talk about that trade. I don't get what in the heck both of those teams are thinking with that. It seriously looked like they were making a trade just to say they made a trade. So what we're talking about is Michael Carter Williams ends up heading over to the Chicago Bulls to even lessen the poor amount of spacing they already had on the team. And in his place, Tony Snell is going to head over to the Milwaukee Bucks. Neither of these guys is going to change either team's standing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think this is a head-scratcher, especially for the Bulls, because Williams and Rondo are just not going to be ideal point guards for that team because they don't have any range whatsoever. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
But the Bulls, they have the potential. I think this is a make-or-break year for the Wizards. Not in terms of whether they're going to unload Wall and Beal and some of those guys, but for the coaching staff. I mean, I know they've got Scott Brooks coming in there as a new guy to take over, but this team is really their window is getting smaller and smaller as the years go by. So they've really got to make a break for it. The Magic have the talent to make a leap forward. I'm just not entirely sold on that front court jam they've created with Bismack, Vucevic, Ibaka, Aaron Gordon. They have way too many guys who need too many minutes up at the front court spot. That could create issues. The Knicks, I would say, are a team I'm fairly confident in making an 8 or 7 seed just because Carmelo, Kristaps is another year into the league, and then they've got D Rose and Noah. I think a big factor here is going to depend on if anything happens to him with that lawsuit going on.
Oh yeah.
If he's gonna get suspended or miss time or what happens with that.
And it's not looking good for him there either.
It's not. It's really not. And that would mean Brandon Jennings stepping in as the full-time point guard, which New York did not plan on at all. So,
something on that Tony Snell trade is that apparently Jason Kidd said that he can see Tony Snell starting at shooting guard.
Got him!
That's pretty bad. I feel bad for Bucks fans.
Mainly because Chris Middleton's out, which we'll talk about more later as well. I mean, Snell's got a decent potential, but he's got a very clear ceiling. He's not going to become any better than like a C+ player in my opinion. So he's just going to be very meh. So I'd say in the Eastern Conference, the two teams that I would even consider getting into the playoffs compared to last year's teams would be the Knicks would be one, and the Wizards would be the other right now. I don't think the Bulls would actually make it, just because of the spacing issues.
Okay.
And then over in the Western Conference, let's see, the Utah Jazz, I feel like, really need to make a big push this year just because they've got all that talent. Hayward needs an extension soon. Favors needs an extension soon. Gobert needs an extension soon. I mean, like, they're all coming towards the end of their deals, and it's a young team. They just got George Hill, which is a big boost for them defensively, and now they have a solidified point guard, and they brought in some nice veteran additions in Joe Johnson and Boris Diaw, so their bench is very solidified as well. They're poised. I think their ceiling is as high as the 5 seed this year. I would not be surprised if or even the 4 seed. So I'm gonna predict they end up in that 5 or 6 slot, though. That sounds about right for them. The other team I would say that could make it is the Timberwolves, or the other two teams are the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. I'm not gonna give anybody else really a chance to get in besides those two teams.
What are you seeing in the Nuggets? I haven't looked at them.
The Nuggets are another one of those really under-the-radar young teams. They've got a lot of guys that no one's really heard of who are very steady, good, young. They're all developing together, which I really love. When you got a young core who can all grow together as a team and all learn chemistry and get along with one another. Nikola Jokic, one of the European players they've got down at center, he's going to be really good. If Emmanuel Mudiay can take another step forward as a second-year point guard, Danilo Gallinari, we know, can fill the stat sheet if he's healthy. Wilson Chandler's back this year. They need to get production out of Kenneth Faried. Will Barton's nice. Gary Harris is nice. I mean, they've got a lot of really good players. They kind of remind me of the Boston Celtics before they picked up Al Horford and Isaiah Thomas emerged, because there's just a lot of good players, but not anybody that's really going to be a superstar type player. So
they're going to workhorse their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, I could see the Nuggets making it this year.
What?
And the Mavericks falling out, and the Rockets falling out.
I was going to ask, who did you see falling out next? I was going to go Grizzlies, really, with falling out, I thought.
I think they'll be okay if Mark Gasol and Mike Conley and Chandler Parsons can all stay healthy. It's a big if, but if they do, I don't think it's fair to say that they would drop out.
That's true, because they were very, very good last season until all those injuries hit them, and they dropped like tanks. So
see, it's harder for me to pick who would drop out in the Eastern.
That's why I didn't even ask you.
Conference, because I think the Pistons, Pacers, so I'd say the Hornets maybe would fall out just because they lost a little too much depth, which would be a big blow to that team. That's really the only team I could see dropping out. I don't see anybody else missing the cut. So maybe it's only one change team in the Eastern Conference. But anyway, that's our little brief look at the playoff situation. So a few injury notes we want to get onto. So we need to discuss this unfortunate situation with Chris Bosh, our favorite dinosaur.
I don't think he's ever going to play again.
It sucks, man. It really sucks. I don't know how else to describe the situation. I feel for the man. I feel because he's such a competitor. He's such a nice guy, it seems like, when you see him doing his uninterrupted videos and he's doing interviews with media and whatnot. He seems like such a classy, nice guy. So
it's just too big of a risk to put a guy out on the court where if a possibility where he could start bleeding and there's the possibility that it won't stop. Like, it's just too big of a risk. No matter how many, like, even if he signs a paperwork or like waivers, like, you're seeing a person die on the court, possibly, potentially. So that just goes beyond, and it goes beyond just his health, which is still the most primarily important thing. But the league is going to be looking at the way they look if that were to happen. I just don't see him playing ever again.
You got to look at the whole scenario. I mean, he's a father and a husband as well, so he's got to think about his family. That's got to factor into this. It always should be family first. Health-wise, he's got plenty of money saved up already, assuming he hasn't blown a lot of it. But I think he seems like a guy. He's done well. I feel for him too, though. I see it from his side where he's really competitive and he wants to be able to say that he overcame this. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of like that situation where you had Eric Berry over in the NFL and the Chiefs have that cancer scare and he had to overcome cancer and he made his way back to the field. So
it's incredible.
I think Chris Bosh, blood clots aren't quite like cancer. They're very different. Yeah. But, it's just the overcoming that kind of an injury or medical, I'd say deficit would be the right word. It would mean a lot to him for his pride and his ego. So I feel like he really wants to make it happen. I'm not sure. You'd have to really see him do well in workouts over the next year to see if he can handle it. But I think if he were to be made available by the Heat, by them just releasing him and allowing him to test the market, teams would still line up to see if he's got anything in there.
See, I don't know about that just because the Heat have been behind Chris Bosh for so long, and they wanted him to play so badly this last season, and to just straight up saying that we're not gonna be able to play you because we're fearful of very terrible things happening on the court. If the Heat are saying this, how is any other team, if any other team picks him up and then that happens, it's just such a big risk that if you make the move, I don't know.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but to play devil's advocate, you also have to look at the Heat's reputation right now, and it's not good.
Yeah, it has gotten. Yeah.
I would say, unfortunately for the great Pat Riley, his reputation has taken quite a bit of a hit.
You blew it!
Over the last year
Heat
or
Nation
two.
has fallen apart, or not really fallen apart, but you can tell that the bonds are
just the way
strong.
He handled the D-Wade situation. A lot of people are going to be sour about for quite a while, just because of how much of a franchise guy he was, and the whole him failing to convince LeBron to stay from a few years ago probably still has some people a little bit sour. Mm-hmm. And just the way he's kind of assembled that team recently, giving all that money to Tyler Johnson, matching that huge offer sheet that he got, and a guy that a lot of people still think is unproven. And then Whiteside was worthy of the contract, I believe, just on potential alone. But there's been a lot of questionable things going on in Miami, so I think a lot of people are going to look at that as well. But like I said, I just hope that Bosh finds happiness some way or another. I hope that either in the next year or so he proves himself healthy enough and the blood clots kind of start to fade and he can regain his status, or he just comes to terms with the fact that he just can't make it happen anymore, and he just enjoys a nice retirement with his family and finds maybe broadcasting or some other source to stay within the game somehow.
Word, definitely. Agreed 100%. His health is the most important thing in this entire situation.
So a couple of other injuries we've already mentioned a little bit we just want to touch on. So Ben Simmons, Philadelphia 76ers. It sucks, man.
Yeah.
Jones fracture in the foot. That's going to really sting for this year just because of the Joel Embiid history from recent past. And it's hopefully something he's going to be able to recover from, no problem. But you can never tell if those things are going to linger and affect a guy down the line. He's still so young, so you're hoping he can just sit out a year maybe, come back just as strong next year, and maybe be a Rookie of the Year candidate for the 2017 season. Yeah, that's about all I got. I mean, they're going to pretty much trade what they would have got with him, and they're going to get Embiid back.
Yeah.
But hopefully he stays healthy.
I mean, 76ers fans are used to this. They're used to their rookies not playing for the first 2 years, sadly. I mean, so I don't think it'll affect them. I mean, of course, they wanted to see Ben Simmons. He was the most hyped player, I think, of the guys they've drafted so far. But, an extra month or two, especially for a guy he's still in his teens or something like that. So
They'll also get, on another positive note, they'll get a look at Dario Saric this year, too, the international guy they took so high in the draft a few years back. He's finally going to make his way over here. One of those draft and stash guys is finally going to make his debut, and they'll see what they got. So they've got 2 potential Rookie of the Year candidates still with Embiid and Saric.
Exactly, yeah.
So hopefully those guys can both stay on the court for most of the season. I feel like Embiid will be babied a little bit just because of the fact that he's been out for so long. But you're hoping that he can play at least half the season.
He's put up some stats. Yeah.
And then finally, Chris Middleton might be the reason why Snell starts for the Bucks this year. That would really be a downgrade. Because Middleton, he's a hell of a player. He really is. He does a lot of things the right way, which a coach really appreciates. He plays the 2 through the 4 positions very well, guards all of them very well. He's become a pretty good sniper from 3-point. He's really trying to develop his game more and more, and now he's going to be out for, I think, at least 3 months, something like that. He's going to be out for quite a while. So
6 months. Tears his hamstring, out for 6 months. Yeah.
So that's basically the season.
Ooh,
that's not good.
I mean, you're looking at a guy who was producing last season at a clip of, 18 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. So he was balling out
18 points per game on a team that was pretty inept at scoring. That's going to be a huge blow.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're replacing it with Tony Snell.
And Michael Carter. No, not Michael Carter. He went over.
Yeah, he's gone. So, good luck with that, Jason Kidd. You're a pretty smart guy. You know what you're doing. So, I mean, he's made some improvements, too, these last 3 years in Milwaukee. He's gone from 12 points to 18 points. I guess in assists, he's doubled that, but he was looking to have possibly a breakout on top of a breakout season this year.
All right, and finally, we want to talk about what kind of storylines we want to keep an eye on for this season, whether it's players, teams, just any kind of things, any big news to keep your eye on. I think the first one that's pretty clear that a lot of people are going to be following is the Russ KD dynamic for this season.
Definitely.
So even though I think it's a bit overblown, just because I think both guys are kind of over it by now and just need to focus on their teams and just winning.
Draymond's going to get a whole lot of attention this season as well.
He is.
He's already getting it this morning, too. Did you see what happened this morning with Mo Spates?
Yeah, I saw that. And then, of course, Spates comes out and denies that it was even him talking. Yeah. But Spates seems like a bit of a talker, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he thought he was going to be a source, and then he got named, and he was like, what? I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. The big issue I have with the Draymond scenario, the big thing that worries me is he's going to need to figure out where to draw that line between being a little bit too much and being too dormant, because I feel like at times he's totally restrained himself, which has been a bit of an issue because he kind of needs that fire and energy to be as impactful as he is normally on the court. But then he can get way too into it, get too many technical fouls, bark too much, and just become a public enemy number one against the referees and the rest of the league. And he's kind of taken away some of that DeMarcus Cousins' attention, if I'm going to be honest.
Absolutely has. Let's see. Anyone else you want to look out for? I got one more person.
Who else you got? How about Mike D'Antoni? If he even works out in Houston this year, where do you draw the line if he's a failure? Where's the threshold of the games they would need to win for him to stay on as coach? What do you want to see from him as the coach? If the defense is this bad, do you still keep him? A lot of mini storylines following him specifically, I feel like. Yeah. Houston's got some expectations. Harden's not getting any younger, and they moved on from Dwight Howard, and now they've welcomed in Clint Capella, Gordon, and Anderson, all as starters. So we'll see how that team meshes and how they compete this year. I feel like if they miss the playoffs, this team's in deep trouble. Yeah. And they may need to start tearing down quite a bit of their pieces and try to rebuild.
So I figured it out while you were talking. It was this is for our local Warriors fans as well. Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is going to be one of the biggest question marks in the league, I think. I saw something a couple days ago that said that if you had put Durant in Harrison Barnes and not changed the way that Durant was playing because he was Durant and he was just taking the same shots that Harrison Barnes was taking, he would have had 14 points per game. And Durant and Harrison Barnes had 11 points per game. So, and I'm not saying that that's going to work the other way, the way it worked coming down, but I think Harrison Barnes could be in line for a breakout season. And it
could be.
Yeah, and be interesting to see. But on the other end, it could just be the same Harrison Barnes that we are very, very used to, being unable to get to the rim with if he doesn't have a straight line and just inconsistent shots and all of that we know Harrison Barnes is. So, big question marks for Harrison Barnes this season.
Yeah, not to be too salty about last season, but I will say that 14 compared to 11 points per game would have won them the finals. It would have, because if you remember Game 7, that it wasn't a blowout.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, really close at the end, and it could have easily went the Warriors' way. And that extra 3 points per game could have been a difference.
Absolutely.
So that does suck. But I'm not disagreeing with you with the fact that Barnes could finally find his own alpha within him and take that next step forward. But this is it. No more excuses. He's still relatively young, which I think you could give him another year after this, or even 2, to see what he's got to reach his potential. But no excuses monetarily. I mean, this dude's getting paid now, so you got to go out there and produce. He's going to get a lot more shots. He's going to get a lot more looks. He's going to get a lot more attention.
That is correct.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
These guys are going to be swarming him a lot more than they ever did when he was with the Warriors.
And he had trouble getting to the rim when he had one guy guarding him. So
yeah, Dirk Nowitzki being around you isn't enough to draw attention away. The other guys are going to have Wes Matthews, who's so-so, Darren Williams probably in the same spot, and Andrew Bogut and Dirk Nowitzki. That might be your supporting cast around you. So that's not going to be. I think pure talent-wise, Barnes is the man on that team. He is the man. I mean, Nowitzki at this point in his career, you can only expect so much from. He'll still be steady, but he's on his way out. Bogut, we know, is not offensively talented one bit, and not much else that he's working with. So that's the Harrison Barnes situation over in the Mavericks. Anything else you wanted to look at?
I think Harrison Barnes really wrapped it up for me. I don't know if there's anything else I got for you.
Couple other little ones. I mean, we mentioned Thibodeau earlier, how he comes back into the NBA and manages that young, youthful team over in Minnesota. San Antonio, how they survived the post-Tim Duncan era, that'll be something to monitor as well. Ginobili on his way out. A lot of younger players coming. I think LaMarcus Aldridge has been in a lot of rumors about he might not even finish the season in San Antonio. And he might be a big trade piece this season, so that'll be very interesting to keep tabs on.
Spurs have done 20 years, have been able to rebuild quickly in a season, so I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised if they decided to make that move.
And just, is anybody going to step up to really challenge either the Cavaliers or the Warriors this year? Mainly the East. I'm still looking for that team to really step up and give the Cavaliers some competition. I mean, you saw the Raptors get the 2 seed last year, but they were no match.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Cleveland. And then Boston, I said earlier, has a chance to get to that 2 seed, especially with Horford in tow. So we'll see how that works out over in the East.
We're a week away. I'm so pumped, man. I am
so pumped. We're ready to get this thing on the road.
Yeah.
And from there, I think that's just going to about do it for today's episode. It's been a quick one. We just did a little bit of NBA for you.
You can blame the gardeners.
But next week, we're back at it with an all-new show, top to bottom. We're going to be covering NFL, MLB playoffs, NBA season, which will actually be starting at that point.
So week 7, I guess, might be into the... Yeah, so we'll be in week 7, and then we'll have World Series possibly coverage. So hopefully,
right on.
Let's get to it. Social media.
I'm still on the tweets at Dalton Wicks. Also, just my name on Facebook.
I'm still at EH24 the Mamba. Although yesterday I was on a computer thinking about changing it, and I decided not to. So we're still at that point. N Harmon Show, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook. We're everywhere right now, so check it out.
Don't forget to subscribe. That's how we know you guys are liking it. That's how we keep on putting these episodes out every week. So go ahead and do that. We'll put more episodes out. Until then, any last words?
Have a good day. Have a good night. Whenever you're listening to it, I hope you're enjoying it, folks.
All right, you stay classy.